and I'm the Government Relations Coordinator at the Oregon Department of Energy. We're really grateful that you've taken the time to join us here today to talk about the Oregon Solar Plus Storage Rebate Program and some changes to that program that are coming in the near future. I'm here today as sort of our moderator for the conversation, and our plan is to discuss the program and which offers rebates to residential customers and low-income service providers who install solar or solar impaired energy storage systems. I want you to know this webinar will be recorded. I think someone will press record now or will press record soon, and I think you'll see a little message about that. And then the slides and the recording will be posted to ODO's website so that you can find it later, or if you have to leave and come back for some reason, you can catch what you might have missed. We'll start our program today with introducing some of the other staff who work at the Department of Energy on this program or in general, and we'll start with James, who's actually leading today's conversation.
Hi, thanks, Christy. My name is James Kogel. I'm a policy analyst here at the Oregon Department of Energy. I work across several of the agency's incentive programs aimed at increasing energy efficiency or the installation of renewable energy.
Great, thanks, James. And then I'd love to introduce our two program staff. Most of you on the line, I imagine, work on this particular program, and these are the two people that you'll be most likely to talk to. They're the ones who make our program run and take really good care of all of our customers. So I just want to first introduce Dale and then Katie. Dale, go ahead and say hi. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Dale Varing. I am a solar rebate assistant.
Thanks, Dale. And Katie?
Hi, my name is Katie Milton, and I am with the Solar and Storage Rebate Program.
Great. Well, we're really grateful to have our program team on the line, as well as James, to answer questions as we go. And I think we can go to the next slide, please. In case you aren't familiar with our agency, I wanted to start with just some brief information about what we do at the Oregon Department of Energy. Our agency helps Oregonians make informed decisions and maintain a resilient and affordable energy system. We advance solutions to shape an equitable clean energy transition, protect the environment and public health, and responsibly balance energy needs and impacts for future and current generations. On this slide, you'll see our 5 broad areas of focus, including energy programs and activities like the Oregon and Solar and Storage Rebate, Solar Plus Storage Rebate Program. So we can go on to the next slide, please. So I mentioned briefly our agenda earlier, what we're going to cover today. Specifically, we're going to start with some logistics after this. And then James will provide an update on changes to the program from recent legislation. And James will then give a quick overview of the administrative rulemaking process and then present the proposed administrative rule concepts that we'll be discussing today. We really want to hear from you. So as we go through all of this, just know that we're going to provide time for questions and comments. And so there'll be a time for that at the end, but I'm also happy to grab raised hands or questions and comments from the chat as we go. So feel free to contribute at any point. We'll talk in a second about how to raise your hand or use the chat, but just feel free to use those 2 ways to get in the line, and then I'll call on you as appropriate as soon as I can. We can go on to the next slide. So just know that the way WebEx organizes us is there's panelists, and that's ODO's staff today, and then there's attendees. That's the 19 folks that have joined us today to hear more about these administrative rule changes. And again, thanks for being here. Just know that we have some community agreements that we expect folks to take a look at and follow to the extent possible. We want you to just be respectful of others and to be ready and to listen and learn. If you have any technical issues during the meeting, you can please chat Patricia Phillips, and she is happy to take care of you. And thank you so much for helping us behind the scenes today, Patricia. And with that, we can go on to slide 5. This is just a quick diagram of what we think you're probably seeing in front of you as the WebEx format. It seems like it looks different on different people's ends sometimes. But we just want to make sure take a second right now to kind of look at how you can share your hand. On my screen, it looks like a little bit of a raised fist sitting side by side with the smiley face. In some forms, sometimes people see the smiley face and they kind of hover over it, and then they get that raised fist that is a tiny raised hand, I guess. So you can look for that now so you know how to raise your hand. And then you should also be able to see a place to open up the chat. And so if you haven't opened chat yet on mine right now, I'm clicking it. It looks like a little quote box at the bottom. So make sure you open up your chat and then you can ask questions in there as well. So take a second, make sure that you know how this is going to work today. And then for those on the phone, you can use *3 to raise your hand, and then we'll unmute you and we can call on you. And then we'll practice us asking a question and then waiting in awkward silence to see if anybody has anything they'd like to contribute. So if you have any questions about using WebEx or having any issues and want to flag those for us, I'm going to go ahead and count to 10 and see if anybody has any issues. And then we'll move on. All right, I think we're good to go. On to you, James.
Thank you, Christy. So quick summary of what happened in the 2023 legislative session related to this program. House Bill 3409 extended the sunset of the Oregon Solar Plus Storage Rebate Program, and that is now extended to January 2nd, 2029. The end of session bill also included an additional investment of $10 million in the program. And there was also a tweak to some of the language that is used in the program. The existing language in the Oregon laws required that a contractor purchase, construct, and install a paired solar and storage system together. House Bill 3409 amended that language and requires that only the purchase need occur at the same time and the installation may occur separately. The solar electric system and the energy storage system still need to be paired once fully installed. This change comes into effect at the start of 2024. Before I move on, are there any questions about anything that happened at the legislative session related to the program? Okay.
I'm talking on mute. I was just saying I don't see any hands raised, and just a reminder for those on the phone, you can press *3. But it doesn't look like anyone has any questions on the legislation. Thanks, James.
Great, thanks, Christy. So now a quick high-level overview of the rulemaking process. So we're in the early stages right now, information gathering. We start off with some stakeholder consultation. And after kind of gathering the information and considering all the feedback, we'll draft up some rule language and then file them with that draft language with the Secretary of State. This kicks off another comment period during which we seek additional feedback on the rules and the draft rule language and its impacts, or the fiscal impact, or some of the other impacts that will be listed on the rule proposal form. We review and consider all this information that we receive during this comment period, and then then we move into finalizing the rules and then file those with the Secretary of State. And only then, once they're filed with the Secretary of State, the final rules, do they become effective. So this process can take a varying length of time. And for this rulemaking, we anticipate it taking approximately about 4 to 6 months. But that may change depending on what we're hearing from stakeholders. So we're proposing a few changes to the program rules, starting with one of the ones I just kind of mentioned during the legislative session. We're proposing changing the definition of paired solar and storage system to align with those recent legislative changes. So this will require only the purchase of a paired solar and storage system to occur at the same time. The installation may be done separately afterwards. We heard that there were delays associated with the shipping and installation of storage and want to hear whether they're still occurring and which of the options I'm going to go through in a moment would be the most effective at reducing the impact of those delays within kind of what we can do with the program and how the program runs. So the options being considered include permitting the solar incentive portion of the rebate to be claimed separately from the storage portion following the installation of the solar system and proof that it's all complete. This would include passing any inspections from the authority having jurisdiction. It would also mean we have to tweak to how rebates are processed in PowerClerk, the software that contractors use to place their reservation requests. Another option would be to extend the time that a reservation for paired solar and storage is valid for. This would allow more time for the storage to be installed. And a third option could be to increase the number of reservations that a contractor can have at a time for systems for residential customers who are not low or moderate income. This could allow a contractor to have reservations waiting for that installation storage to the storage to be installed while having a greater capacity to complete other projects at the same time. Are there any questions on this proposed potential rule change? Let's give a moment for people.
While we wait to see if anybody puts their hand up or has anything to say in the chat, I'm just gonna kind of ask for a clarifying question that I know the answer to, just to make sure everyone's clear. So we're trying to figure out different ways that we can make the new statute work, right? And we want to hear from contractors their thoughts on how would be best for this to work, whether that's splitting payments. So if solar goes in first, but storage goes in later, we can pay out for part of the solar, whether it's extending a reservation so that you have longer to complete the project, or increasing the cap so that folks aren't waiting for that storage to come on before being able to pick up another application out there, right? Does that sound like the approach?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to align the definitions with what was changed in the legislature, and then we're going to need to see if there's other tweaks to be made to the rules to make that change in the definitions kind of more effective throughout the rest of the program, and how contractors can install the solar.
It looks like Angela has a hand up, so we can hear from Angela on this idea. Anyone else that has thoughts on this, it's a great time to share. We'll also have time at the end, so you don't have to chat now, but we can talk it through, and then we'll call on Trisha in a minute after Angela goes. Angela, it should be up to you.
Yeah, Angela Crowley-Cook with OSEA. I don't have a question at this time, but I have some comments. Is this the right time to comment on those ideas?
Is it, if it's on like what we're talking about on this slide, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, thank you, by the way, for thinking of these ideas. I really like options A and B. Having both of them, I think, would be ideal. I think it would be helpful to the contractors to have those payments split, since timing can be uncertain of when the actual product will arrive, and extending that reservation as well when there is need for it. I mean, nobody wants to extend their reservations too long because they'd like to move on to the next project. So it doesn't seem like that would be something that would be misused or something like that. I think those two are appropriate. I'm not sure on C. My kind of first reaction is that that's not needed. And I think some of my members would have concerns that if more reservations were allowed for non-income restricted reservations, that it could make the funds be depleted faster, but I'm not sure. I'd like to get some feedback from folks and be interested in what others have to say. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Angela. And then we can go to Trisha. And Trisha, I'll let you know when it looks like you're off mute. You're off mute now.
So my name's Trisha. I'm with ProStat Electric and Solar. Are these proposed changes, or are these changes that are the set rules now?
These are proposed, just kind of floating out options to kind of get feedback on right now. And there'll be another comment period after we draft up some rules. So this is like still very early in the process. The statute doesn't become effective until the start of 2024, and our rules cannot become effective before then as well. So this is kind of still early in the information gathering stage.
Okay. One question I had is with the you talked about separating solar and storage. I'm assuming that means application process as well. Would storage have its? It doesn't?
It doesn't actually, Trisha. No. So the application would come in the same way with solar plus storage.
Okay.
So if somebody's getting both, storage is not like a separate add-on. They have to be sort of purchased together, but they can
Okay.
be installed separately is
Okay.
the change in statute. And really it's to solve a problem we heard about with solar materials being more available, but storage, sometimes the battery taking longer to come in due to supply chain issues. And so not having, the idea really is to figure out how can we make it so that installers aren't on the hook sort of waiting for that storage to come in to get paid for the solar piece of the rebate, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. But you can go on. I just didn't want you to you may go on with the assumption that was not the case, if that makes sense.
Oh, well, all I was gonna say in that regards is if the storage applications would have its own separate queue, so that I know you were thinking about increasing the overall application queue for the contractor, or how many they can have at a time. And I was just wondering, if they were going to be separated, if there'd be a storage queue and then a solar queue, so that you can kind of separate. The storage is going to be set aside, and it's not going to affect other amount of applications that you can have coming in. But it sounds like it's going to be in the same queue. So if you do the split payment, and the contractor's having to wait on the storage, typically, if I can remember correctly, because it's been a while, but an application is considered in your queue until it's completed. So wouldn't that add to, if you paid out solar, but you're still waiting to pay out storage, but in the meantime, the contractor is having to count that as part of their queue? Just something for thought.
Yeah. That's why we have the third option there. Maybe that's another place where we can increase the cap or something. You might be onto an idea here with okay, you're waiting for storage. So maybe there's sort of you're moving into a different queue or something. That might be an interesting idea for us to think about, right, James?
Or maybe
Stability.
even just put a different type of status that moves it out in Power Clerk. So it's not part of a queue anymore, but it goes into a separate status. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah. Me neither, Trisha. But Katie and Dale and James can talk about that. But I think that's what we're kind of getting at with that number 3.
Okay.
Yep. So thanks for the thoughts. It's really great.
Yep.
And we had somebody in the queue, but they're gone. Frankie G, I guess your question must be answered. So with that, I do see one new, Frankie went into the chat. There we go. They're wondering if the vendors be different companies, would they be able to hire a contractor for solar panel installation and then on their own purchase a vanadium flow battery from a different vendor? And if so, reimbursed, or would the payment go to store N? Does that question make sense, James? You can look at it in the chat too.
So it's a little difficult without necessarily a bit more context, but the rebates are only able to be applied for by a eligible contractor. So the contractor would be applying for the rebate and having purchased the solar and the storage system together. So I need to kind of dive into the specifics of what we say in the rule, but I would need to kind of look back at that, but it basically would be the same company that would be installing.
The same contractor.
Same
I think the question might be, does it need to be the same supplier for the solar panels as for the storage, is how I read the question, which I assume
okay.
would be different.
Yeah, I don't think.
Frankie can try again with the raised hand and we can get them off mute if that'd be helpful, because I think we are. Yeah, let's go ahead and bring you in, Frankie. You're off mute.
Addressing my question. I'm not a contractor. I'm just I guess one of those non-LMI people. Just a residential person, homeowner who is interested in getting onto this solar panel stuff. And I was doing research. I think the biggest hold thing that's been holding me back is that storage solutions are not really up to par. I'm not really liking what's the common storage solution right now, which is lithium ion. And I heard that vanadium. I looked at some alternatives, and vanadium flow it seems to be the best out there for long-term and reliable, non-draining. So many factors. I guess I could look into the contractor. It sounds like what you're saying is I need to hire a contractor that Oregon DOE approves of. I guess what I would hope then is I could work with them to buy the storage that I want. And if they can't, I guess I'll just have to wait for vanadium flow to become more popular so that they might consider it. So
Yeah,
I think you.
Yeah, you'd have to do the purchase through your contractor, but hopefully you could find a contractor that'd be willing to work with you on getting what you want.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you. That answered my question.
Yeah, they got to be purchased from the same contractor, but yeah, the contractor should be able to help.
Great. Well, with that, we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. Thanks, James, and everyone for the good questions and the comments.
Okay. So other proposals that we're kind of proposing for amendment include increasing the number of low or moderate income residential customer or low income service provider reservations a contractor can have at a time from 20 to 25. We're also proposing to increase the amount of time a reservation for low income service provider can be extended from a 1 year reservation with a possible extension of 180 days to, again, that 1 year reservation with a possible extension of an additional year. This is again due to the feedback that low-income service provider projects have been delayed due to supply chain and workforce constraints. So that would be like an extra 180 days there to get those projects complete. But again, looking for feedback to whether that is would be helpful. An additional rule change being proposed is to reduce the residential rebate rate for customers who are not eligible for a utility incentive and are not low or moderate income, from 50 cents per watt down to 30 cents per watt. We would maintain the current rate of 20 cents per watt for those that are eligible for utility incentive and are not low or moderate income. And again, the same, we're going to maintain the rate for the low moderate income rebate as well. And we're also proposing to remove some language in rules that was written when the program was first established and relates to kind of the original budget timeline. So just kind of pulling out some of those original dates, but kind of maintaining same allocations. They're just kind of doing a little bit of a cleanup from when the program was first established. While I've got these proposals up on the screen, are there any questions or comments on these rules? Christy, you're on mute.
Looks like Frankie G had their hand up first.
Cool. I think it's pretty the causation. The link is pretty clear why the reduced. But I wanted to hear it from you guys, you two, or one of you two. Is that it's pretty obvious the amount of rebate will be reduced for non-LMI is because you want to kind of allocate more of the money to the LMI residential customers from 20 to 25. Is that why there's just not enough money to increase LMI and keep the residential rebate rate?
So I think to some degree the kind of the landscape for utility incentives has changed a little bit since when the program was first started. In part, it's to kind of take account for those changes, as well as to kind of increase the longevity of the program and sustainability of the program.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think, Frankie, the thing that I would add just quickly is one of the things that's changed a lot is there's a federal tax credit. And for low to moderate income populations, that federal tax credit isn't always available. But for someone who's above that income threshold, they'll qualify for that federal income tax credit that wasn't there before. So it basically says, like, we'll still give you an incentive, like a rebate incentive in addition to your tax credit, but like you're going to get more than you were going to get before from a different place. So kind of leveling that out. And then the other piece is that we want the incentive to last longer, to go further. And so if we're continuing to incentivize at the same level, despite the federal tax credit adding to someone's, off the bill in the end, let's call it a coupon overall, like how much different they pay with the combination of the rebate and tax credit, kind of went from this to this. So if we kind of ramp it back down and keep it more in line about the same benefit, we can then give more people rebates overall.
Oh, nice. I knew there was more to it than that simplified link that I came up with. Thank you. That was exactly the answer. Oh, sorry for adding another question. This is actually not related, so you could just say pass or no comment. But I was wondering, can people after this program are people allowed to sell electricity back to? Oh, this is Oregon Department of Energy, but here in Eugene, I'm serviced by eWeb. Is there anyone, or maybe I should just ask broadly? Does anyone sell electricity back to their public utility?
Yeah, most people that have solar are producing that solar and through what's called net metering. That power kind of goes back and then you get a discount on your bill.
Oh, nice. Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
I will.
You can Google net metering. It's kind of complicated to explain.
Definitely.
But then you can learn about it through like a video that somebody made to help you understand versus me doing a bad job of it.
And you call it net metering. Is that what
That's
it is?
right.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so next up was Lara, we'll see. You're off mute.
Administrator. I submit the rebate applications. I work with Dale and Katie on a weekly basis.
Great.
And thank you for this opportunity to share some feedback and our experience with this program since it's begun. What I first want to say is that A&R would support increasing the number of reservations per contractor, but only if we reduce the rebate rate. So what we really want to emphasize here is that we fully support reducing the non-income restricted residential rate for both solar and storage. And since the beginning of the program, A&R has expressed that the non-LMI rate is unnecessarily large and wasteful. Since 2020, we have experienced stressful cliff events and significant uncertainty regarding what expectations to set with potential customers. And this has led to some Oregonians to not move forward with solar. So we find this policy hampers with the state's ability to meet climate targets and our ability as a contractor to train and develop a workforce that is ready to tackle the energy transition. So reducing the incentive rate and cap is the single most effective way of achieving the department's stated goals and expanding access to more Oregonians and increasing the life and stability of the incentive program. We call this a cost-effective approach, and it provides the biggest bang for the state's buck, effectively doubling the number of non-LMI customers who can actually use this program, doubling the amount of clean energy deployed, doubling the amount of CO2 offset, and creating more jobs. So we just want to make that clear that we fully support reducing the non-income restricted residential rate. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. I feel like you just added the answer to Frankie's question too. Thank you. All right, I don't see any other hands up. I answered a question in the chat. No changes to the LMI rate at this point. We are applying for a federal competitive grant that could have us revisit that conversation in the not too distant future. So stay tuned on that. And then I was just writing in the chat, but to Matthew's question, we'll post the slides and we'll also post a copy of this recording on our website, right where you were looking after this meeting today. Thank you. All right, I don't see any other hands or comments other than the ones I've just addressed. We can go on to our next slide. And essentially, this is more of like an open time. So while we asked you to specifically comment on some of the changes we're already thinking about, if there's something that didn't come up, or if you have general questions, this is a chance to ask those. So feel free to raise your hand, say something in the chat, and then you'll see some of the next steps here as we're chatting too. So if while we're chatting, you want to jot down James's email address, or I'll put that link to sign up for email notices, or maybe I'll make James do it because I don't have the PowerPoint open to grab the link, but maybe you can put the link to sign up for email notices for this rulemaking into the chat for people to sign up while they're listening in or thinking of questions or asking questions. And we'll do the awkward silence thing until somebody raises their hand or asks something in the chat. Patricia got the link in. Thanks, James. Okay, so apparently our draft ideas are looking great and no one has anything else to add at this point.
Yeah, I would just
There
say,
you go, Laura's back. I'll let you know when you're off mute.
Oh, great. Thank you again. Yeah, I wanted to also share that, we haven't needed to use the reservation extension request for more than 2 requests at a time. So the third extension has never been necessary. We don't feel like this change is as significant or important compared to reducing the non-income restricted residential rate.
Great. Appreciate that. And then Frankie, you're off mute.
I might have misunderstood Laura from A&R Solar, because it doesn't make sense. Why would a contractor want non-LMI rebates to be reduced? Why would a contractor want, say, someone like me to pay more? I mean, disregarding the federal tax credit. It makes sense from ODOE standpoint, as you have a limited budget, but why would it make sense to an A&R?
Yeah, I don't know if Laura wants to answer that. I can take a stab at it if Laura wants to. She can raise her hand. What I would say is that having what's happened in the past. Oh, I'll go ahead and let Laura go ahead and take it. Why not? Yeah, you're off mute, Laura.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I can understand why it might not seem economical, but the way we see it at A&R is that if you reduce the rate, you're extending this program to more Oregonians and creating a more stable clean energy economy that way. So it's really about it's what we've seen is very large rebate incentive amounts that could actually be spread out to more people and last longer rather than what we've experienced. When I said cliff events, this means like the money is running out fast, and we're all scrambling as contractors to fill these queues quickly. And if the rebate amount was reduced, that can slow down the cliff event, reduce the impact of this instability, and allow more Oregonians to go solar.
And Frankie, to give you a little bit of history, I've been around our agency for a few years, and in the time I've been here, this program kind of came online and the money went almost right away. And then the program closed down, and we actually ended up having to lay off our workers because we ran out of the money. And then when we did get more money, we had to rehire our staff, which then retrain them and get all the systems back up and running again after the program had been suspended for a bit. So it creates for an agency perspective, if we run out of the money, it creates this dynamic where the program stops, everything stops. And then if it restarts again, it's like takes longer to get it started again. So if we have the program be able to be sustainable and last throughout each 2-year cycle before the state puts more money into it, then that's better for our contractors who can continue to offer the rebate for longer. And it's good for us because then we don't have the situation where we lose staff and bring them back. I will say that our 2 staff that we have now, because the program now has a longer life than it had in the past, we extended the sunset, the length of the program in legislation. So they're really not going anywhere, but that boom and bust thing could be problematic and has been in the past. So that's, I think, part of what people are thinking about. And then Frankie, you can go ahead and respond to Laura, and then I have a question in the chat next.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. That does make sense. And in fact, I can see how that would benefit someone like me in that I might actually have a chance to use a rebate. It sounds like in the past, a lot of people maybe wanted to use a rebate, but because of the cliff ran out. Just to follow up on that history, like in the past, how many resident non-LMI signed up when just kind of, I'm trying to gauge the rate at which the money was or the offer was taken. And now that sorry, it's like kind of a complicated question. So there was a set amount of money in the past. I'm wondering how fast it ran out given and how many residential customers it served. And then now with more funding, what is the forecasted number of residential customers who will be able to take advantage of this program, non-LMI?
I'm not sure we can pull that information fast enough to answer on the webinar, but I think you have to sign up with your email address to get on. So we could follow up with you on that if you'd like. We have information where we could like show how much money total, but we'd have to like look back at like a timeline. And then it depends on how long the money will last based on what the rebate amounts are like, which is something we're pondering with the rule change, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I'd totally be interested in that information. Cool. Yeah, and I understand that that's hard to get right now. Cool. Thank you so much.
Yeah. We have like the numbers, but we'd have to like crunch them to specifically answer that. So, we'll have to follow up with you. And then the question in the chat was, is there a required amount of storage per amount of solar installed? And just to say one thing to be clear about is you are not required to have storage as part of a solar PV system under this program. But if you were to add storage, James, are there any minimum amounts that are required?
Yeah, so if you choose to install storage with the solar, then the system must include a minimum of 1 kilowatt DC of solar electric capacity for every 5 kilowatt hours of battery storage. Your contractor will be able to kind of figure out what that means for your system, but there is like a minimum requirement in the program rules.
Hopefully that answers Nancy's question. And with that, I don't see any other hands up or any other comments in the chat for us to take up today. So we could perhaps move on to that last slide. I know it's a little early, but
Before we move on, I'd just like to mention that if people are finding they have questions come up or comments on these rules after today, please drop me an email. My email's there, and we will be having another webinar in October, on October 7th as well.
And if memory serves, I think our plan is that we'll incorporate any of the comments we've gotten so far into sort of our thinking that we'll present. So if you were to come to the webinar in October, you might find us having a different thing that we've now added or something we've tweaked or changed from this original one based on feedback received.
Yeah, if we're hearing a lot of strong information from stakeholders that this isn't a good idea, this is a good idea, or there's another thing that people are like, this should be included in a rule change, then there may be kind of adding to that discussion in the next webinar. Thanks, Christy. I'll move on. And so this is really just thank you all for attending today. And if you have any questions about the program or wish to learn more, you can visit the program's website, and these slides will be up, and you'll be able to kind of click on that URL link from the slides. Or you can ask program staff, and the team's email address is on the screen. So this will take you there to the team's mailbox. Be the quickest way to get a response. And Dale and Katie will be looking at those responses. And so unless there's any other questions or comments coming in, I wish you all a lovely rest of your day, and thank you for coming.
I'll just acknowledge Angela and Frankie's comments here at the end. Got it, noted. And we'll go ahead and stick around for a couple minutes in case anybody would like to say anything else. And then, but folks should absolutely start peeling off. And just if you have anything you didn't want to say in front of the whole group, but want to mention to James because he plots our course, feel free to come off mute and say, or to raise your hand or put something in the chat. All right, it doesn't seem like anyone has anything for us, so I think we'll peel off too. You know how to find us, and if you're still on and hearing us chat, feel free to get in touch on this anytime between now and say the date again, October 6th, in this informal period. And then again, lots more opportunities for comment to come. All right, I think we can end it whenever.